Now, this is just to show that now Jade is a non-supporter. Been in my groups forever. Comes up with some great points. And this is what sometimes the family or supporters will do when they're asked a question that they can't logically answer. They either don't answer it, or they answer with rudeness, or they divert from whatever it is. Just like when I got into it with Mystery Maverick, when she put in the video that Officer Waddell was napping in his cruiser at the Baptist church right down the road there. And I said, you can't say that. You can't make it. If you need to make it seem as something, then, it just makes Darlie look bad. Because he wasn't sleeping in his cruiser, and there's no evidence of that. So instead of just answering it, she went into my son's case and started posting stuff about my son's case and getting up under people's videos and all that. Instead of answering the question, she told Rich Prater that I threatened her, which I proved that I didn't. And this is sometimes what they do. They get so frustrated when they just want her to be innocent. And when we come up with stuff that questions that innocence, some of them are known to start to insult, not answer, or deflect. And here's just a small example of that. Now, this is Jade coming nicely to ask this question because Darlie Key was there answering questions until this one came up. Miss Key, I'm genuinely sorry for what this tragedy has caused you. I haven't been mindful of how awful my comments were, and I apologize. I want to be a supporter. Non-supporters want to hear why Darlie is factually not guilty, not why she's procedurally not guilty. For your daughter's sake, it would clear up some serious unanswered questions that could change minds. It could make a difference of 150 or 1,000 people coming to the March for Darlie. It could save your daughter's life. I would like for you to address Darlie's letters from county jail about Glenn Mize. Now, Glenn Mize, I've never been able to get a hold of. He exists, and Gary Austin. I would like for you to address the 911 call where Darren says, I come in here and someone intentionally did it, Darren. Why did she have to convince him? Thank you in advance for your answer. If it's not beneficial to answer, I understand that as well. Anyway, thank you. Critical thinker, we do believe, is Kathy Cruz. Jade, if I may, there's one thing we need to keep in mind with regard to those letters written from jail. If I'm not mistaken, there were two different PIs working on the case, and when they would give Darlie information, she would grasp onto it like a lifeline. She's in jail, on trial for her very life. And meanwhile, she knows that someone else did this, and he is walking around free. She sits there day after day with nothing to do but rack her brains trying to remember. Desperately trying to think of someone at all that could have possibly done it. When PIs would give her updates, her mind would kick into overdrive, and she would take that information and create conjectures in her mind, trying to make sense of it all. There were no lies in those letters, only misinformation. There were also letters written to Darlie from others that would tell her leads and suspects, get her all riled up. However, the prosecution carefully picked and chose the letters they confronted her with. The prosecution had nothing to do with the mail that was being sent to her. In fact, do we want to talk about Phil Adams? Do we want to talk about Phil Adams? Can I bring Phil Adams up again? They confiscated letters from Darlie. The prosecution cannot take their letters, but they can read them. I'll just let this go down so you can read it. Someone who came in here and intentionally did it, Darren, as if she was angry. Go back and listen to it. Darren was accusing her, in my opinion. He was accusing her. Now, the answer would be, but on those letters, Darlie said, I know it's him, I saw him, and she did. She did say that. And then, Jade is being nice here. She said those things because those ideas were planted in her head. I saw him was not planted in her head. A lie is a statement made with the intent to deliberately deceive. That's a good question. You know, she says, it just seems like she snapped at Darren because there is the whole thing where she goes, I promise. It's right in the 911. She says, I promise. You can hear it clear as day. What's she promising? Meatloaf for dinner? Waddell was not inside the house when she said that. One other thing to keep in mind is that when Darlie made the statement, someone who did it intentionally walked in here and did this, Darren, is the fact. It is that Officer David Waddell was inside the house at the time. No, he wasn't. Because she ended the call with, the police are at your door, you need to let them in. This is misinformation. And Jade knows that. Waddell's testimony was all about making Darlie look as bad as possible. Well, if Waddell's testimony was 100% truthful, Darlie's actions made her look that way, not him. If Darren actually accused her of the murders, it's a safe bet that he would say it. You would hear about it. Darren admits on the last defense that he fabricated things, and he clearly says, I did it for Darlie. He fabricated in the last video that I showed. The one before this. That knife did not go through the body and into the floor. And he lied right on TV. That's what she said. I know it was him. I saw him. Those letters were lies if nobody addresses them. And see, and this is some of the nons coming back. You know, you could stop this to read it. I just want to keep the video at a certain length. That is Crappy Cruz. Oh, somebody else said it. But see, they'll ignore it or they'll stop talking about it. And then they'll go to, somebody misspelled the word your, and then they go to that. Now, come on, that's pathetic. And then you get some people that, well, like, we don't know this person, Corey. You know? But see, now, this is uncalled for. I used to act like that. I really did. This is, you know, this shouldn't be said to them, really. No wonder they don't want to answer a lot of stuff. But you can't be telling lies. I'm going to show you one down here. Darlie Key, why did you lie about your daughter's polygraph on the Robert Riggs interview? Lying equals consciousness of guilt. Your daughter murdered your boys. You're a rotten mother. Blah blah blah. Okay, all right. All right. Well, you know, but she did lie. And as a matter of fact, I'm gonna redo that video again because they already knew that Darlie took the lie detector test and she failed it. Robert Riggs was there when she took it. He's a Pulitzer award-winning journalist. He covered the mass shooting that took place in Killeen, Texas, in 1991. There was some more, but he kept on and he got the Peabody Award. Now, Darlie's aware of these, but she can't answer that because she got caught lying on national TV. Robert Riggs said, did she take a lie detector test? And she said, no, she did not. But they were seen after the lie detector test was taken. Hugging, crying. And Riggs is not going to report that without any facts. And remember, he was Pulitzer Prize winner, and then he moved on to Peabody. You don't get those types of awards if you're putting out misinformation. She lied. Then it gets like that. Yeah, she did say. That's another thing I put out there. And she said, well, there's no way that serrated knife could have cut the screen because it had a rounded tip. That kind of was dumb, because you can. And here's another one, too. They really wanted to get this out there for everybody. But Dr. Phil has wanted her to go on that show, to speak their mind. But they refused Dr. Phil. For some reason, they refused Dr. Phil. They also refused to do brain fingerprinting. That's something I brought up to them. Brain fingerprinting. Look it up. They refuse to do that. They will not do that. And it's available. Check out brain fingerprinting on YouTube. And see, then they try to, that's one of theirs, talking about how Dr. Phil is. I have a question down here that I asked for Barb Davis. Because Barbara Davis is on here. I'm going to go ahead and move on down. This is a couple years ago. All right, this is Barbara Davis. God bless her soul. She passed away. She is the one who wrote the book Precious Angels. And then quickly recanted everything that's in her informative book, Precious Angels, which I have a copy of here. I might even just read the whole thing out and do it in video form. I also have, I have all of them there, except for Media Tribe, Justice Denied. Those are ones that my friend sent to me from Nova Scotia. Barbara Davis says, I wanted to be there so bad. My next doctor, blah, blah, blah. She wanted to be there, and actually, Barbara Davis passed away. Okay? And then, Jade, once Barbara Davis changed her mind, and I'll show you why she changed her mind here in just a second. She promised that that book, Precious Angels, was based on her guilt, and it's actually pretty good. She promised to write a book based on her innocence. She promised that in 1999, and we never saw it again. Not to mention that Barb Davis' son, Troy, was shot and killed during a raid on their home because he lunged at police. And they found drugs in the home, and Barb was convicted of that. I'm not deflecting, I'm just trying to say. See, Barb Davis never answered that. I'm just going to roll down here a little bit real quick. Now, they keep saying that the son of the arresting police officer was a possible suspect. He was never. Chadwick Patterson was never a suspect. That's something that the supporters came up with. Because they were looking into the families and the backgrounds of the lead detectives and all that. Everybody in it. Everybody that went to that scene was mentally ill, or they just wanted Darlie to be guilty. Darlie did say she did not fight off an detective. She said she was frightening. And now this is uncalled for, but I don't have nothing to do with that. That's not me. We know about those letters, and they are in evidence, but they didn't use them, I don't think. Oh, Jamie Johnson. And he also failed to mention, they keep saying about Jimmy Patterson taking the fifth. Well, he was accused of a crime in open court that had nothing to do with the Darlie case. It had to do with him being accused of a crime. So he took the fifth on that subject only. Hold on just a second. Damn spam callers. Yeah, Darlie took the fifth on the bond Darlie took the fifth, I believe, on the bond hearing. Get a life and move on, Jay. That is not Darren Routier. Yeah, because he never was a suspect, and then they won't answer it. He was never a suspect. He was only a suspect in the minds of the Darlie Routier supporters. He wasn't even excluded. Yeah, Sorrella did tell me that they got hold of his fingerprints and he was ruled out. Now let's get into why Barb Davis changed her mind. I'll do that in the next video. They keep saying that she wrote that book, and she wrote that book, Precious Angels, and then she suddenly changed her mind. I'll show you the very second Barb Davis changed her mind. And the reason why. I'll show you that. Give me a moment.